Hello everyone, it is time for another Doc Talk, and today we'll be covering the recent Jubilee discussion between the Unhoused and Millionaires. People live such very different lives in the times of today, and I find it interesting to see them come together and talk about their worldviews as they have sculpted. Let's dive on in, shall we?
Being poor is a choice.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt.
Well, I currently am poor, very poor. And it might not always be their choice, but I do believe it's a choice. Absolutely.
What do you mean by that? That's not their choice. Elaborate.
Some people wind up in certain situations illegally in certain ways, or some parents don't do certain things that they should, whatever. But I believe it is essentially, if you're not gonna get out and get it, then you're choosing not to.
Valid.
I have a follow-up question for you. Why do you think they choose to be poor?
Because it's hard to build. It's hard to build something, and it's scary to build something, and there's more excuses. There's more excuses than there are solutions.
He seems like the kind of guy that'll sell you some weed, but also bring food to your family's potluck. I like him.
I think ultimately being poor is a choice, but there's a ton of nuances. If you look at Mexico, for example, it's like 130 million people. It was like 55 million of them can't find like adequate housing. That's not their fault. So I'd say there are cases where people have no choice in them being poor. 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you can't go back to work, or you don't have a community and a support system in place that can help you get through that and the capital to get through that, it's a pretty fast domino effect from you're missing work, you're missing rent, you're in a shelter, you're on the street, and if it's that type of trauma, the fastest way to get out of it is going to be a substance.
This man came in with not just his opinions, but real-world examples and experience. He seems articulate, yet empathetic. And he honestly broke down the process of someone ending up homeless quite well. The vast majority of Americans barely scrape by, waiting for each check to make sure the bills are paid. If someone starts missing work, the snowball downhill starts rolling. And at the end of all this, you have substances waiting for you with an eerie smile.
The lack of trauma being addressed is the biggest contributor to the unhoused crisis that you guys have.
I kind of disagree with that because I know you said trauma causes it, but I think trauma is also subjective, right? Like there's like the parable about the two brothers where their dad was an alcoholic and then one grows up to be an alcoholic and he blames his dad. You know, the other brother, who he grew up, became successful, didn't touch alcohol. They ask him why, and it's the same reason. The same trauma, but it just affected each one differently. So trauma or things that are out of our control may contribute, but I still don't think it changes the fact that being poor is a choice.
This parable fit into this conversation incredibly well. One brother blames his abusive alcoholic father for his shortcomings, while the other uses that to drive him forward. There are nuances in this situation as well, but this is an excellent example of why trauma might not be the largest contributor to homelessness. People's brains are wired differently, even between family. How you respond is up to you.
I come from Russia, so in Russia, it's a very tough mentality. I grew up in like a small village, and a lot of people could have like a victim mentality, but they don't. They toughen it out, and they just keep going no matter what. So when I came to America, I noticed it's super, super different than it is in Europe, and Eastern Europe especially, because people just here have a lot of like this victim mentality, and a lot of times it's like, it's crazy, but people in Russia don't even talk about mental health, which I don't think is right either. But in Russia, it's like you don't get depressed, you don't have bad days. You're not allowed to have bad days. So I feel like in the United States, we almost over talk about it, almost baby them, and sometimes I'm like, you need to be tougher in life.
Using the term victim mentality could definitely rub some people the wrong way. It's become a bit of a trigger word. Some people will just never see it that way. There are also likely more opportunities in the US to turn to illegal activities for money, which, if caught, could increase the difficulty of making ends meet even further. In these tiny villages in Russia, you'll still have a place to live, no matter how dire the circumstances. Your life won't be easy, and the ceiling isn't as high, but there is still a strong sense of community. She does make an excellent point, however, in that maybe the reason mental health in Russia isn't a major issue on the surface is due to a lack of discussion about it. It's almost as if us talking about mental health and focusing on it is somehow exacerbating the issue. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
I first want to say that seeing people come up here and say that poverty is a choice is very highly offensive, and I want to let you know that all four of y'all being millionaires, I find that deeply insulting for you to say that it was a choice for me to be poor. Now, one of you brought up the myth that if you go to school and work hard, then you just be successful. I graduated from UCLA despite getting my GED in prison. When I went to LSU to study for my MFA, I went there as a single parent with my daughter to Baton Rouge, and we were homeless there. And working at LSU as a graduate teaching assistant, I was still in poverty. My daughter couldn't access good schools because of racism. She was in a segregated school where she didn't get the same services as the white kids.
This man came out of the gate swinging. While I do agree that public educators should be paid better, it's still a choice to have that job. He's also been to prison and has a kid. The prompt is in regard to choices, even if they aren't the right ones. Nah, but he does seem like a guy who busts his ass to provide a better life for his kid. I'm not gonna hate on him. Let him say his piece.
And it's funny for, you to say that you come from Russia, and so we have a victim mentality here. But you can come from Russia to the United States of America and have white privilege that I can't access. I've been arrested for walking through Los Feliz just for the color of my skin. Is that a victim mentality, or am I being victimized? There's a big difference there. So I want to say that all of you should check your privilege at the door. I never chose to be poor. No one from my background has ever chosen to be poor. Neither do any demographic that is living in poverty in this nation. We face discrimination on a daily basis, and we're doing everything in our power to lift ourselves up by our bootstraps, as you tell us to.
Now, this is a tricky topic. To say that you were arrested simply for the color of your skin is a bold claim. I'm not sure what the situation was, and if he was detained purely for his race, that is wrong, and I condemn it. I can't help but feel there is more to the story, but only he and the officers on duty will truly know. I truly believe his sentiment that those in his community are not choosing to be poor. I believe people work with what they know. While they can do research on ways to make money, many are products of their environment. Some of the millionaires in the conversation may have had a mentor or someone who enabled their business pursuits. I won't discredit the work that they put in, but who knows which kind of opportunities may have been laid out for them to work from.
So do you guys think it's a choice for us to be poor?
Well, it depends. Like, do you guys have a mental disability or a physical disability? Like, I feel like...
Yes. No hard feelings.
Yeah, I think with the exception maybe, I'm not well versed on that, so I don't want to speak on your position specifically, but for everyone else, I would say yes.
So
I mean, as
full-time-
respectfully as possible. Yeah.
So working full-time, going to school, being a single parent with sole custody and placement of my daughter, doing everything right that I'm supposed to do, I'm choosing to be poor by working full-time, by going to school, by taking care of my child.
That's a beautiful thing.
The thing is, you having a daughter,
That's a beautiful thing.
choice. That was your choice, was it not?
I didn't ask you about.
Did you ejaculate inside your girlfriend?
Don't speak on my daughter. I asked
You having a daughter?
Bro, don't speak on my daughter, bro. I asked you a question.
I'm asking you a question.
I asked you a
Is
question.
having
Am I
a daughter a
choosing to be
choice?
poor? Yes or no? By working full time.
So you want me to answer a yes or no question, but you want to answer a yes or no question?
Is working full time choosing to be poor? Just
Is
answer the
having a
question.
child a choice?
Is working full time choosing to be poor? Why you can't answer the question?
Yes.
First of all,
Yes, here's why.
First,
I have a daughter too, so
I
know where
love
you're
that you
coming
work
from.
full time.
I think right now you're trading your time for too little money. You gotta find the skill that'll allow you to trade your time for more money. Because you're working full time, you're grinding it out because you gotta make ends meet, right? Regardless, I know you seem like that type of person. I could hear the passion in your voice. You need to find a way to trade your time for more money, so that when you work full time, it gives you more leeway, more freedom, better life.
Phew, it was starting to get heated in there. Even though you're making the more financially responsible choices now, having the kid in the first place puts you behind. Kids are fucking expensive, and they require a support network to open up your time and make more money. That being said, respect to him for getting custody of his daughter and making the sacrifices necessary to provide a better life for her. A lot of the little boys out here knocking up teenagers don't have the balls for it.
Capitalism creates homelessness.
Yeah, so my perspective is, whether you're looking at laissez-faire capitalism and you're looking at the industrialists and those who were, ultra rich, that created a system where the majority of the people are living in poverty, and many of those people do not have homes. It's an exploitative system. And those who have access to the capital usually pass down as wealth through generations, wealth transfers from grandfathers, fathers to grandchildren, children. And those of us who are locked out of that capital are the exploited labor pool. So being homeless, they subsidize our labor in Los Angeles. They'll even go to the point where you will get a subsidized job where the employer gets to use your labor for free. They don't have to pay you a penny. I've worked many subsidized jobs. Capitalism is the system that does this. Socialism, systems where we all work together. Communism, systems where we all get an opportunity. We're working together, egalitarian, or those who have are actually helping to take care of those who don't. They don't create homelessness. They actually make sure to prevent homelessness. So capitalism is an insidious system that keeps many of us locked out of wealth, that keeps many of us in homeless shelters and dying on the streets homeless.
First off, this young man has taken the time to learn, step by step, the process of building generational wealth and utilizing a younger workforce to exponentially increase your profits. However, there are a lot of points to address here. There is a small pool of people who own an incredible amount of the wealth, it is true, but we no longer live in what's called a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game is a situation in game theory where one participant's gain is exactly balanced by another participant's loss. In other words, there is one pie, and any amount of exchange would be done back and forth in that pie. This means there's only so much wealth to go around. In days long before myself, we exchanged value based on what's called the gold standard, meaning you would measure its value based on how much gold it was worth. This created a system in which those who obtained the gold could, in theory, own the pie and dish it out as they like. Under a fiat currency, as we are now, we can expand and contract the money supply based on what the economy needs. Now, that is a rabbit hole in and of itself, but that is a conversation for another Doc Talk. But we live in a time where wealth can be created out of nothing, and that is what is truly amazing about capitalism. Building wealth does not have to be exploiting another. We can lift each other to greater heights. Does this always happen? Certainly not. But any system will have people exploiting it when the opportunity arrives. Nothing is guaranteed under capitalism, and that is the truth. You can build an empire, or you can fall to the wayside. If it is a system that you don't want to be a part of, I understand. However, it offers you the highest financial potential.
In the capitalist system, there's not really much of an incentive to help unhoused people. In fact, I feel like there's an incentive to kind of push the unhoused people down, push them away. And as someone on the streets or who was recently on the streets, I could feel that pressure. Like I felt it whenever I walked into a store and then I felt like I wasn't wanted. Security would meet me, people would go away, or people moved away from me at the bus, or seeing a bus stop. You know how there's that rod in the middle of the bus stop? And you know that the city deliberately put that little rod there to prevent somebody from being able to lay down because they don't want us there. And I think a capitalist system does incentivize that. And I don't know the solution. I don't know much about socialism versus capitalism and all that, but I just know our current economic system is devaluing the interconnectedness of humanity.
I've witnessed this treatment of the homeless firsthand. It does sadden me to see it. Businesses don't want potentially dangerous individuals to linger outside of their establishments. It usually doesn't bode well for business. It is an unfortunate side effect of patronage and dates back before capitalism's conception.
Oh, I was gonna say, Russia actually also had slavery. Did you know that? Were they enslaved their own people too?
Ah, shit. This isn't gonna go well. She flipped her hair back like she just dropped a fucking nuke.
And they killed millions of their own, but no one ever, talks about that. They worked on the fields, 16-hour days. It was the same thing. But again, that happened like 100 years ago. Slavery in the United States, of course, it's a huge part, but that happened like 300 years ago. That was their life, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't have to do that. I didn't use that to come in here and say, oh, I have a tough life too. It's a man's world out here. I just should give up,
No, I don't know. I don't know what you mean. See, my situation is nothing like yours. I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it's fucking hilarious that he wanted absolutely nothing to do with anything she just said right there. Priceless.
You were able to come over here, like you said, as an immigrant and access white privilege that was put into place for you to access. Meanwhile, like I said, my father was born before the passage of the Civil Rights Act, born without civil rights, drank from segregated drinking fountains. My grandmother was born a sharecropper and escaped out of that situation. And the ending of slavery is not suddenly a glorious moment for African Americans like you're trying to paint it to be. It ended 100 years ago. No, we still deal with the issues today. So I don't know what you're talking about. I dealt with racism in my own life. I walk down Los Feliz, I get arrested for the color of my skin, stopped, detained, questioned, profiled, even held in jail without being convicted of a crime. I have no clue what you're talking about.
Okay.
You speaking on Africans and African Americans and our experience and trying to compare it to Russians, I have no idea what you're talking about.
She probably couldn't even speak English when she came over. While she does seem pretentious as hell, I don't think anyone was rolling out the red carpet for some village Russian chick.
So I'm also black. I've gone through the same type of racism, the same N-words, the same small hick towns, all this stuff the same. And I never look at it. I never think about it like that. It's like, why does everyone have to bring up something that held someone else back? It's always, oh man, they did this to the blacks, or the blacks did this, or the Mexicans did this, or what about the good things? What about the, hey, did you see that dunk? Did you see that garb?
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of negativity around capitalism all the time, and I totally understand it. And if you look at the system that we have in place right now, and you blame, government bureaucrats for being in bed with the billionaires and the business owners and all that kind of stuff, and you think, oh, that's a big problem, which I hear a lot from people. That's not capitalism. That's cronyism. That's where business interest and government interest are inextricably linked.
Und this is where a lot of people get mixed up with the issues involving our economy. Cronyism is when the government will enable a business that serves their interest, while simultaneously blocking out the competitors. However, this is a direct corruption of capitalism, not a component of it.
Capitalism just means private ownership over the means of production. As we were standing back there, you're talking about socialism and communism. I mean, that's a slippery slope to go down. You would know.
Yeah.
I come from a country that's more socialist leaning. We do pay a bit higher taxes, but we have universal health care, right? And you look at, the happiness index of Denmark. You look at Norway, you look at Finland. These are places that have a mix of capitalism and socialism. I'm not saying pro-socialism in any way, shape, or form. That said, it does have its benefits. The blame that so many people put toward capitalism, I think, is misplaced. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I would agree. If we had a system of capitalism and white supremacy wasn't involved because it wasn't imposed upon us, maybe we would have a different history. But the reality isn't like that. The reality is that this system of capitalism that we're under, it was involved in slavery. So like you said, it is about the human interest, and that comes into play, not just what's on paper. Like you said, when we're out here in LA and we're homeless, we have nowhere to go, we can't even lay on a bus stop. Where are we supposed to go? It's a crime for us to even exist in a society. So where are we supposed to exist at? I'm not understanding. Where does the system want us to go? The Olympics are coming up.
I think the only thing you're not understanding is the prompt, which was about capitalism.
Right, that's capitalism.
I think if the prompt was pink puppy dogs, we'd end up at race like within one step.
So you can take race out of it because you don't deal with the negative aspects of race. You're not oppressed due to the color of your skin. So you can take race out of capitalism. It's a part of capitalism. Who started capitalism? Who started the system?
Well, I'll say this.
I can tell you, it wasn't a black man in Africa.
The United States is not the only country that has capitalism.
Right, I said who started capitalism. Do you know? Was it a black man in Africa?
It went from feudalism to mercantilism to capitalism, and it was like a naturally evolving structure.
Did it naturally evolve in Africa?
An excellent job breaking down the evolving stages of trade into capitalism. I'm not sure if race is important in regard as to whom conceived it. It was a collective of people from all over the world. Over time, we learned what worked and what did not.
All right, you guys, we're gonna have to cut this video in half due to it being so fucking long. Your asses better like the video and subscribe to the channel. I put a lot of time into making this. Let's make this algorithm our little bitch.
And that'll wrap up our little doc talk today. If you enjoy the content, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Just be civil.
Fuck that. It's time for war. I'll see you motherfuckers in chat.